Every game based on the Dark Souls formula has nearly identical base mechanics. They normally change up the way they do one or two things, but that's about it. Lies of P does just that. It uses all of the established things from the Souls-like genre, but puts a little bit of a twist on one mechanic that I think is kind of frustrating with its limitations. What does it mean to be a Souls-like though? I think there are 5 major design criteria that define the Souls-like genre. I'm not going to go into all the nuances of the genre, but this is what I've seen as the bare minimum of what a Souls-like is. Number 1, the game has to balance its difficulty between impossibly difficult and manageably difficult. I think that Lies of P balances its difficulty very well. The enemies in Lies of P are an interesting mix from what I've seen so far. There are a lot of large, heavy-hitting enemies, but also a lot of smaller, faster enemies. I've run into 3 bosses that are very large and heavy-hitting, and one that's decently quick and agile, where I have to get behind him to do any good amount of damage. But none of them have felt impossible for me to get past. So I think Lies of P maintains the balance really well. The second criteria is forcing the player to be aware of their stamina level at all times. Since everything in most Souls-like games takes stamina, the player needs to pay attention to it, and Lies of P is no different there. Your stamina is vital to your survival, and Lies of P gives you just enough for you to survive right away. And each point you put into your vigor stat increases it just enough that you can get one more attack in or one more dodge in. At least that's how it feels to me. The third thing is Souls-like games use animation priority as their main driving force in combat. Ugh. On a personal note, I fucking hate this about a lot of Souls-like games. Dark Souls, Elden Ring, The Surge, and Lies of P all use this system for their animations while in combat, and I dislike this system. It's a personal thing, I just don't like it. I understand that they want their combat to be very methodical and strategic, but like I said, that doesn't mean that I have to personally like the system. It's just my gripe with all of the Souls-like genre. The fourth and fifth criteria for a Souls-like game kind of go hand in hand. The fourth one is having to manage very limited health regeneration items. Whether it's Estus Flask in Dark Souls, the Flask of Crimson Tears from Elden Ring, or Pulse Cells in Lies of P. Souls-like games have very limited health regen items. And the fifth one is a player must return to a bonfire if they want to save the game and regen all of their health regeneration items. In Dark Souls, it's a bonfire. In Lies of P, it's a stargazer. And it's with these 2 criteria where Lies of P changes things a little bit, and it makes me question why. Lies of P feels like it wants to combine the traditional flask system with something like the Surge's regen system, but it limits it entirely too much. Lies of P's healing system goes something like this. You get 3 pulse cells to start out with at the beginning of the game. All of them will regen at a stargazer. If you use up all of the pulse cells in your fights and you don't go to a stargazer, but you keep attacking enemies, you can earn 1 back. Just 1. No matter how much you hit enemies or do damage to bosses after you've regenerated that single pulse cell, you will not earn a second one, or a third one, or a fourth one. That is until you use up that pulse cell, or you go to a stargazer. For me, I'm mostly wondering why they put the limit on regenning just a single pulse cell. It kind of feels like a half-assed limitation. It's to the point of, they don't want you to run back to stargazers when you run out of pulse cells. Like, you kind of do in Dark Souls and Elden Ring and stuff. But they also didn't want you to just keep, fighting and fighting and fighting and regenning your cells. To me, it feels like it should be one way or the other, because this middle ground, it doesn't feel that good to me. I'd like to have seen it where you could fully regen them by hitting enemies after you have fully exhausted the cells for the first time. Like, you go to a stargazer, regen all your cells, you leave that, you fight, you use up all 3 of your pulse cells, and then when you're hitting enemies, it just keeps regenning them all the way until you are full. I just think it would have been more interesting to do it that way, and they could have made the distances between stargazers longer so that you could go and, just keep earning. You could also have a more wide variety of boss battles with it. Most of Lies of P's boss battles that I fought are a single giant puppet, and that's normally how it is in Souls-like games. But think of it this way. If you made it so you could regen all of your cells through attacking, maybe even adding in blocking to go and regen it, I don't know, it's just an idea. You could have another variety of boss battles, or you could have, a different type of boss battle, a battle of attrition with maybe waves of enemies attacking. And if you use all the health regen early, you have to fight your way to earn it back. Or you could also use the cells for like certain puzzles, having to use a cell to go and open the door or something. I don't know. It's just an idea. Although I think Lies of P is an excellent Souls-like game with an interesting story, difficult bosses, and good mechanics, it also has a few nitpicky things for me because of animation priority combat and the weird healing item regen. Those kind of drag the game down a little bit for me. I do suggest trying the game if you're into Souls-like games, because it is good so far. I've only beaten like 3 or 4 bosses and gotten into the factory, which I think is like the third area after, because you have intro, then you get to the bridge, or then City Hall, and then the factory. So yeah, like 3rd or 4th area within the game. And so far, I do like it, and I think it is a fairly good Souls-like game. So I would suggest, at least trying it. But that's all I've really got to say about Lies of P. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video, maybe found it slightly informative. If you did, maybe hit that like button, maybe subscribe if you feel like it, and have a royal day.